Friends and enemies, welcome back to the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast number 207. Len, we passed our 4-year anniversary. Did you know that? I think it was 206, right? 52 by 4. Oh no, 52 by 4 is 208. So we're on, next one is our 4-year anniversary.
But you got to take it a step further because there is a leap year every 4 years too, right? So you have to take that consideration, right?
Yeah,
so
okay.
I don't know when do we do our first show?
Somebody will tell us. We
sometime
don't keep track anymore, but
it was March. It was
definitely.
a March.
Yeah,
I thought it was the last week of March.
I couldn't tell you. I don't know. It's good to see you anyways. You know, whether it's the first time or the 207th time, always a pleasure. So
no, we missed a few weeks. I was off with COVID, remember, for at least 1 week, and I think Gandalf took my place.
Gandalf did one for you, and then also our old friends SB and Wayfaring took one as well.
Was that the one where I was on hiatus because of I was just...
Wayfaring did another one where you took a week off to protest David Bailey and Mark Goodwin. But we've had so many great filling guests, whether it's, the recent Deedles, Boomer, Gandalf pregnancy roster. Jeff Devick, yeah, of course. Or whether it was COVID or summer vacations or whatever.
Did you say Boomer? Boomer for
sure.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah.
Tom Karadza for sure.
Tommy boy. I was just on his show last week. We had a great talk, almost 2 hours. You guys are going to love that one.
2 hours, holy shit.
Yeah, pretty close. I went there at 3 o'clock and I home till like 7. Yeah.
Very nice.
Anyway, so we got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, Carney's been making the rounds. We got Scott Bessent, or I guess Lutnick, I should say. Lutnick's former employer, Cantor Fitzgerald, making a $2 billion bet on Bitcoin lending, among other things. A full roster of great content for you on tonight's CBP. But first, the sponsors. EasyDNS, Mark. Is he the favorite co-host? He might be. I don't know. He's up there for sure among our listeners and viewers. He's the proprietor, the founder of EasyDNS. And that's where we do business when it comes to the CBP website, and we encourage you to do the same. Head over. You can buy a website, buy a domain, port a domain if you have one already. Mark will help you in either case. Set up a little WordPress site. He's got a suite of different options over there for you. And not to mention, Len, the now world famous, oh my gosh, the name is escaping me here. The security suite. Oh my gosh. What is it called? DomainSure. DomainSure. Yeah. The world famous DomainSure. We talk about DomainSure a lot on Access of Easy, our other podcast that we do for EasyDNS. And it's important that you guys understand that this day and age, okay, you're being exposed to it a little bit on the Bitcoin side now. Lots of people gunning for domains, gunning for spoof emails, gunning for all kinds of stuff that'll make your life a lot more difficult if you don't have a competent DNS provider. Mark is competent and more. And of course, if you're a Bitcoin maxi or even Bitcoin enthusiast, you get all your other fun toys over there. Hey, Len, you got the virtual private server stuff that gives you a chance to do Nostr relays, nodes, BTC pay servers, among other things that I'm surely leaving out. And you can do all that at 50% off the first time you head over to give Mark your business. Can't beat that. CBP Media is the code. Tell him we sent you, or hit him in the chat. He's always in the chat. And you get that 50% off your first round of buys. You can't beat it. Who's the other sponsor?
Bull Bitcoin. And you know what? I missed the price of Bitcoin. I'm guessing it's the low 80s. I'm not sure in USD, but good time to buy, good time to sell. Whatever you want to do, they have you covered. Both on-chain and Lightning. On-chain is still very, very cheap for what you think it's going to be in the next little while. So continually do your exchanges on-chain for the time being. And Bull Bitcoin, they're non-custodial. This is what you want in an exchange because there are exchanges out there, many of them, almost all of them. Bull just bucks the trend in this case, that they're non-custodial. And you don't want to deal with a custodial exchange because you don't know what's going to happen in the future.
I have a story. I have a story about this. I had some money that I won't say who it was for, although if you listen back in the show, you'll know that I was running some ShakeBase stuff for someone in my life. I tried to pull the money off Len to a cold wallet, shotgun KYC. How about that? You're at risk, man. You use these other services. I'm telling you.
Yeah. So with respect to Bull, you don't have that. When you make your buy, you have to provide a Bitcoin address. That's the only way to finish the whole process. If you don't, well, you can't facilitate the buy, which is what you want. Again, you want to take custody of your Bitcoin right away, and they batch these transactions, so you get it usually within an hour's time after making the buy. You can also do a few other things with your Bitcoin. You could start exchanging it in one of two ways. Number one, you could start paying your bills. You got some credit card bills, you got whatever you got to pay off. You could use your Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin had a huge run up in the past year, so you may want to start using the gains that you've made in Bitcoin, so you can start paying your bills with the Bitcoin. The second thing you could do, you could buy gift cards, and you could start using that indirectly in the real world, because right now in Canada, just like just about everywhere else in the world, it's impossible for the most part to buy stuff directly with Bitcoin. So you have to do it indirectly by buying these gift cards, and well, lo and behold, Bull Bitcoin has you covered with respect to that. Open an account if you haven't done so. You get $21 added to your account once you provide the necessary information and fund your account. The referral link is below. Check it out. That's where I do my buys, Joey. I love it. And I will always do my buys there.
Let's keep it going. Boosts for today on this beautiful spring evening.
You know what? All we received, and it's odd, we got no messages for boosts. I don't know why that's the case. We got, in terms of sats streamed, it was the exact same previous week. For whatever reason, no messages. I don't know why.
Fountain's been giving you a bit of a hard time, right? Like over the last little while, like they're kind of hit and miss. Sometimes you can see the boost, other times you can't see them. Now you can see the stats, but you can't see the messages. There should at least be 2 beer glass emojis cheersing together.
I could not find it, unless it's somehow got buried or it's just not showing up. And my apologies if that's the case, but I'm going based off what I could see. So, yeah. Unfortunately, we're going to skip the boost part. So if you want to do a boostergram for next week, check it out. Rather than stream us the stats, just send us a message. We'll be happy to read it. It's the same thing in the end. If you're going to stream us the stats, just send it to 0 and send us the note, and you get something in the end. So
totally. I totally
agree
with
opinion.
That. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Do you want to do a little housekeeping here? We can do... I was on Your Life, Your Terms last week. I think it's out tomorrow. Tom called me today and let me know it'll be out tomorrow. And then who's the interview this week? Is it Mr. DeGroot this week?
Yeah, Michael DeGroot.
Yeah.
So we'll be talking about peer-to-peer.
Yeah.
And you're the one that clued me into him, I think.
Yeah.
It was you.
He messaged me. He's been a follower of the show, and we follow each other on Twitter for a long time. He actually, if you go back a few months during that, sort of murderer's row, in my opinion, of good Bitcoiners who addressed the Vancouver City Council, he was among them. So, he's a guy who is trying to get the message out, and not just by speaking. He's also done some good work here on the app side as well, which you guys will be talking about on Wednesday.
Yeah, peer-to-peer is something that we don't tend to talk a lot over here, but it's one of the ways you could accumulate your Bitcoin and even start spending your Bitcoin. And that's really what Bitcoin is. It's peer-to-peer exchange, right? Totally. I would love to talk more about that, but yeah, that's it for my housekeeping items.
Good stuff. Yeah, I got nothing else to talk about. Let's hop in. Where do you want to start? This is, like I said, an eventful week to say the least. So we got lots to talk about.
With respect to Bitcoin, it's not, and I'm actually shocked. I mean, from what I gather here, it's been relatively quiet with Bitcoin. The rest of the world.
What about the Cantor Fitzgerald thing? That's pretty significant. No,
is it? To me, it's. I don't know. I don't know why I'm just downplaying that. I mean, I think that the biggest thing this week was this guy that was talking about the 84K and making that prediction, right? That to me, that was the biggest news. And if that's the biggest news of the week, it's a very, very slow news week with respect to Bitcoin. But still, the guy's name is Josh Mann or Josh Mandel, I guess is his full name.
Yeah, Josh Mandel.
Yeah, so Joshy Bitcoin, we'll call him. And he apparently is a legendary Wall Street trader. And whatever that means, he's made a lot of money over the past little while. And he's been calling his shots. And so he's been public with his trades. And apparently a lot of them have been very good. I don't know. I haven't followed this. I still don't follow the guy anyways. He made a prediction back in November 5th of last year. This is before... That's before the election, right? That was before the federal. So that's how long ago it was. So Kamala was still a candidate.
Or is the election on the 4th? Maybe it's on the 4th. I don't know now. Anyway, yeah.
Either way, it was roughly around that time, and we were still wondering if Kamala would be the president or not. I think we all knew, but so he made that prediction: Bitcoin would be $84,000, and he said that would be in play on Pi Day. That's AKA March 14th, and sure enough. The price on March 14th was $84K, and especially at the close. It was almost to the dollar. It was $84K. It was very, very close. And so this caused a huge frenzy amongst people in Bitcoin Twitter or Bitcoin X, whatever the fuck you want to call it these days. I don't know. How could this guy be so right? Does he know something that we don't? Does he have some divine knowledge? Does his DeLorean go 88 miles per hour? These are questions we don't know. But November, he was giving people tips of NFA for him and from us as well. He was saying to buy iBit calls, as the calls, he says, would, quote, melt their faces, end quote. I don't know what that means, but it seems like it's going to go to the moon. He also mentioned that the fourth turning is upon us. And that's a statement I can agree with. It seems like we're witnessing the end of the US dollar being the almighty, but Trump may have temporarily halted this, but still it's steadily on a decline. So the fourth turning definitely is around the corner. As for when, who the heck knows? But either way, I have to say, for people out there that are buying this, I got to say shame on you, because this guy, Joshy Bitcoin, I don't think he knows anything more than you and I really do know, Joey. And all these million TA predictions, right? Like we finally have one piece of shit that was thrown onto the wall and it's stuck. And this is it. I'm not, trying to say that this guy knows anything. I don't think he knows shit, but I think it's just more hoopla, more smoke than anything else.
I'm in a group chat where people are worshiping this guy, like quite literally.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, you're not in this.
You gotta
one,
call
it's
fucking
a lot of
names.
the same suspects. There's people in this. I can see people in the live chat who are also in that group worshiping this guy. What's Josh, like 6 o'clock in the morning? What's Josh say about this? What's Josh saying about the price? I don't know anything about this guy. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about this guy. I don't know what his deal is. He's tweeting out emojis now. He's got deep fucking value vibes at this point. Like he thinks he can move the market with a couple of tweets. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. I don't know. But like, why? I like TA. Like I do dabble in the crayons, the art of the crayons here, but I'm not that great at it. Obviously, I just try and hang around moving averages and try and take some emotion out of my bigger buys when I get a chance to. And even that is like very unscientific. The idea that you could predict the price of something like Bitcoin, which is the embodiment of animal spirits. It's an incredibly liquid market, trades 24/7, is international. So it is at the mercy of everything from geopolitics to NVIDIA earnings. And the idea that you could predict this, 5 months out, I think it's crazy. It's obviously, one guy who got it right. Not to mention that because there's so many autistic people in Bitcoin, if somebody gets a price prediction right, someone on Twitter will find it, no matter who it is. So you got to imagine, there's a million monkeys tapping away on keyboards, like the saying goes. Finally, one guy gets it right, and we decide to give him a book deal. Let's see how the second novel looks. You know what I mean? Well, I think we'll probably not hear much from this fellow going forward.
Here's the test, Joey. Do you follow him on Twitter?
No. I don't even know the guy's handle. I have no idea what his handle is.
I can tell you right now, it's Josh Mann. At least I think that's what it is. I don't follow him either, so I'm not in that.
Let's just go to his page. I'm just going to go to his page. Let's see what it says.
But there are people that do, because I took a peek, and I think it's just the chat you were referring to. I'm part of. There are people in that chat that follow this dude, and I was like, what the? Why bother? This guy, good for him. I have to give him credit. He was able to accurately predict something. But is it just sheer luck? Yes.
I mean, this guy going after the power law guy. There's petty beefs on Twitter between two guys who think that they can predict price. It's hilarious stuff about.
And I'm not trying to shit on if he could somehow channel all the knowledge he has and the experience and figure out what's all the more power to him. And I'm not going to try to say like that. I'm shitting on him, or like I honestly just don't give a shit. I truly just don't give a shit about what
it is crazy. Like this guy has 100,000 followers now. Then no one knew who he was a week ago. So make of that what you will.
All it takes is just getting, and all the other millions of people that are doing TA and putting their predictions on there, right? Like it's almost in a way it's similar to like you hear the story of somebody making it big, trading or buying a meme coin, and they are saying, look, I bought it, I made so much money. But how many other people lost money in that same project? Because that guy the money just didn't come out of thin air. Obviously. Somebody had to buy and the money just funneled into his account from somebody else's. So that's what I'm looking at. It's like this guy was kind of on the right side of the trade, or at least the right side of the prediction, but really whatever. Right? So for people out there that are putting a lot of stock in it, personally, I wouldn't.
Len's shaking his head. People on audio, Len has been shaking his head for a good 4 or 5 minutes here. He's talking and his head's just going back and forth.
Well, I feel bad if you are one of the people that bought into this.
Can I get in his paid group? Does he have a paid Discord I can join for trade signals, FX signals? How do I get in?
He should do that to monitor. Like, he should capitalize on this, and I would recommend nobody out there follow it, because that just doesn't make sense. But still, there's going to be a bunch of suckers. I gotta give him my money. This guy knows something. He'll fucking. If this guy has a crystal ball, the guy's going to be the richest guy in the world just with a few shrewd trades. It doesn't take much with 100x long and something, and you just fucking kick ass. But anyways, let's move on, Joey. This Bitcoin Act of 2025. I'm not sure if you follow this thing. It's just making the rounds again. I don't know. It was a proposal that was introduced in the U.S. House of Representatives, and it's talking about acquiring 1 million Bitcoin over the course of 5 years. And I don't know where they're going to acquire that Bitcoin, because I'm not going to sell mine. I'm sure you was also not going to sell yours. But anyways, they say that they're not going to use taxpayers' money to do it, to buy it. I mean, and the immediate question
is that the specific phrasing, or is it has to be budget neutral?
It's more of I'm paraphrasing here, but like, I don't know, how did they get 1 million? It's through what avenue?
It's a lot.
Like,
it's a lot.
It's a lot of confiscation, right? They only have a couple 100,000, give or take, and that was through the history of. I mean, granted, they've been selling, but still 1 million. That's 800,000 more Bitcoin they're going to have to somehow accumulate. How much does MicroStrategy have right now? Around 400,000 or 500,000 Bitcoin.
500K. Yeah.
So they have to 1.5 what MicroStrategy has. And think of how much money MicroStrategy. So I don't know how they could do this with being revenue neutral or not costing the taxpayer.
The thing is, like, it's hard. It's hard because as soon as you announce that you're going to pursue a strategy like this, what does the price do? It sure doesn't go down. So how do you try and get good value for the taxpayer there? You have to be transparent in some respect because of the laws related to these types of things, but you can't be too transparent because you're going to move the market in a way that's, unfair, picking winners, pick your sort of phrasing. But you've been on this for a bit. Like, do you think that this is a reasonable thing to expect, that the government buys Bitcoin, acquires Bitcoin, whether it's revenue neutral or not? Or do you think that it's more likely that all they do is just not sell immediately the things that they confiscate, proceeds of crime and other items of that nature?
Well, in terms of like acquiring Bitcoin, I don't know a government right now that is running a surplus. So just getting Bitcoin, I'm not sure exactly what's the nature they could do it without ultimately devaluing whatever currency they have, because they're going to go further into debt. So I don't know. And I have no issues with any government accumulating Bitcoin. Maybe the method in which they accumulate it, I could have an issue. But like I've said it many times before, Bitcoin is there. If anyone or thing wants to buy it, great. And if they don't, great. This is your opportunity to do something.
Boomer mentioning that he thinks it can be done through mining. I've said on this show that I think corporate mining is a good target for nationalization inside of 5 or 7 years, let's say. At $1 million Bitcoin, Bitfarms is not going to be allowed to keep the stuff that they mine. There may be a tax on miners as opposed to just shutting them out from energy. There may be a quote unquote climate neutrality tax of some kind. 5% of what you mine goes into the US Treasury. I can see all these things happening. This is the easiest way for me to imagine that these guys accumulate, and they do want to accumulate. There's no doubt about it. But I think there's better ways than confiscating XRP and selling it, or the popular method du jour, selling a bit of the strategic cheese reserve. How dare they? Hopefully not any Parmigiana being sold for Bitcoin.
Well, that would then be proof that they have it. And because a lot of people are saying they don't. So if they're selling whatever they have, well, they have to have something to sell.
It's not Fort Knox. It needs to be audited. It's Fort Fromage. We got to get into Fort Fromage today and find out.
With respect to the mining it, the environment that we're in right now, and Ontario, has threatened to cut off surplus electricity to some of the northern states. Can there be an opportunity to at least discuss, we're going to start using some excess electricity to mine Bitcoin?
Oh, I love it.
I don't know. I understand if you have excess electricity, say in a southern state, it's virtually or impossible to move that to a northern state because it's just moving electricity is not easy to do. You're going to lose it through transmission. But still, just the thought of it, I don't know, in the political climate today, it may be something that we might have to wait a little while. One thing about the HODL strategy, though, I'll have to just note this, is that they were saying they want to hold on to their Bitcoin for 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's not like they want to keep it or buy it and then instantly flip it for something else, maybe for whatever, pay off a debt. 20 years, that's what they're saying. 20 plus years, it could be beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, whatever's written today could easily be rewritten tomorrow, depending on the whim of the person in power. So Cynthia Lummis is also heavily tied to this. Good or bad, I don't know. A lot of people are liking this.
She's
Bitcoin.
crypto and Bitcoin, regardless of whether or not people think she's Bitcoin only.
Is she crypto too?
Most of
I don't know.
Most of the stuff she pushes is pretty crypto friendly. Has crypto in the text. I mean, this is people in Bitcoin don't read the bills, and so they're like, oh, the Bitcoin mom or whatever they call her, and it's just like, fine. There's good stuff for Bitcoin there, but to pretend that she's not placating the other side as well in an attempt to get stuff through is wrong. And through that, there's some granting of legitimacy to those other assets that I don't think those assets deserve. And I would guess you agree with that sentiment. I personally don't care if the government accumulates at this point, because all the like regulatory cloud, I say this every week, but I have to keep repeating it because people don't seem to understand this. The regulatory cloud has been lifted. I realize that, there's, some part of both of us that probably thinks that this Cantor Fitzgerald story is sort of a moot point. This $2 billion, initial investment in a lending, I should say, service based around Bitcoin as collateral. When you think about Cantor Fitzgerald, which is pro Bitcoin, their former CEO Lutnick, who's now the Treasury Secretary, I believe, or the Commerce Secretary, one or the other, making this push on the administrative political side, and then his former company making this push on the private sector side. Why wouldn't you think that Bitcoin is headed higher longer term? You don't need the government to be buying, although it seems to me almost like a done deal that at some point they will. Even more than that, you and me talk a lot about Coinbase being the quote unquote custodian for future Bitcoin acquisitions that the U.S. wants to hold. What do you want to bet it ends up being Cantor instead?
I have no thoughts, nothing else to add besides that they should be holding themselves. I don't care if it's Cantor, it's Coinbase or Fidelity or even you or I.
Yeah.
Like, fuck. It just, if you have the opportunity, you should. And it's not like you can't. There are publicly traded companies out there that do it. I mean, Tesla being one of them comes to mind. I found no information. I could find nothing to show that they have their Bitcoin held through a third party. They're holding it themselves. Unless somebody could prove to me otherwise, I couldn't find it. Mm-hmm. And they're one of the largest publicly traded companies out there and very public. And so if they could do it, why can't the government do it? It seems to be, copy and paste.
Unreasonable, yeah. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, all this stuff is evolving. The one thing I will say that I think we're both probably positive on is this is happening way faster than I thought it was going to 2 years ago. When we started this show even 4 years back, we were sitting around discussing whether or not any of these public companies, Apple was the one that we used to talk about all the time because they just had so much goddamn money.
Wasn't it Oracle too?
That was Oracle, Larry Ellison. Yeah, it was just like every quarter we got to listen to the Oracle call to see if they bought. Zero Hedge tweeting not only the EPS, but also the Bitcoin position, if there was any. And of course there wasn't. And now you have government officials who are coming from private sector companies, some of the largest the world has ever seen, talking about pro Bitcoin stances. And, to see that inside of 4 years and to still have people say that they don't know if we're in a bull market, like you're in a 10-year bull trend here for Bitcoin, for sure. And I would argue it started in November of 2024. That you're in a 10-year bull trend because the price of this thing is only going to go up as currencies fail, as economic doctrines fail around the world, as currency alliances fail overseas. Like, you think there's not going to be a demand for an impartial, apolitical, censorship-resistant, decentralized money? I maybe you're right, but that's not where I'd be putting my bets. That's for sure.
See, P-Man is saying in the chat, they say Bitcoin is for friends and enemies, right? Bigger enemy than government. And who the hell cares who buys it, in my opinion?
Yeah.
Is it theoretically, let's just really play this out. Say, governments buy up the remaining supply and even goes beyond. Say they accumulate half the supply. So they buy 10.5 million Bitcoin. Does it really
Yeah.
change anything in the
No,
end?
no.
You don't. It's not proof of stake. You can't control the mining. You can't influence the network. And so it's
It's
just
floor setting though, price wise, right? That's government is slow money.
yeah,
That's a 4 or 5 year minimum hold probably. So
yeah.
yeah.
And so like I'm looking at it. It's just an asset anyone can buy, and if the government wants to buy it, all the more power to them. And if they don't, have fun staying poor.
Agreed.
And you talked about Cantor Fitzgerald. Do you want to go on about more than this, or you said they would be launching that $2 billion?
No, it's fine. If you want to look
Yeah.
more into it, yeah, like it's something we've discussed in the past. There's going to be Bitcoin loan programs, and this is yet another one. It's a monster one, mind you, but there will be more like it. It's even if you don't want to use your Bitcoin as collateral, even if you don't want to get loans against it, even if you don't want to loan it, whatever, right? If you're just a hodler, stash your keys, keep your cold card, and off you go, great. But the point is that some of the fog of war related to legislative risk, related to legal risk, related to any number of other sort of government-based risks for price and long-term stability and sustainability, they're basically disappearing, every day. There's really, in my opinion, there's none left, but it's harder and harder to make the case that there's anything that should be holding you back from buying.
Even like Bhutan,
Yeah.
they're not buying. They're just simply diverting their surplus electricity to mine Bitcoin. Like that was the suggestion you had. That's what the United States should potentially do, or maybe tax one of the miners that are setting up shop in the States. So yeah, and they've accumulated a healthy amount of Bitcoin, and that was just energy that they were going to probably sell off. And I'm not sure. I think it was going to be at a very low cost to neighboring countries. So use that to mine Bitcoin. It makes sense. So that's another one. If you have all this energy that is just not being used, cannot be monetized to the same degree, just use that to mine Bitcoin. At least for now. It makes sense if you try to figure out how much it costs to mine one Bitcoin. I know it's difficult to do because mining one Bitcoin it's all luck, but you could kind of figure out between the hash rate and the price of Bitcoin, and you can see, well, it may be profitable if you can get the equipment cheap enough. And if electricity is free, and if you're the one producing electricity, it is essentially free because what else are you going to do with it?
Yeah, you're getting to the point where there's no longer going to be any such thing as excess or surplus electricity, right? Like it's all going to be used. Yeah. Yeah.
It makes sense. And in Canada, I'll go on a bit of a tangent here, but think of all the industries that were using a lot of electricity, like the pulp and paper industry, for example, and they, for whatever reason, they're closing down. They were serviced with a lot of electricity, and where did electricity end up going? And well, let's just use that to mine Bitcoin. Didn't Ocean Falls? They were doing that, I believe. They were using an underutilized dam that was producing electricity, and just now they're using it to mine Bitcoin. It's been a long time since we talked to Oded.
Yeah,
we should say hello to that guy.
Yeah.
Anyways, solo BitAxe miner, and just want to bring up my little BitAxe here. So
I can't believe this keeps happening.
Yeah, well, it's just the laws of averages, because eventually, if you get enough of these out there, they're gonna end up solving the riddle to mine and build a block. And in this case, block 887212 was done by a solo BitAxe miner, and the guy or gal was rewarded with a little over 3 Bitcoin in the fees plus the transaction fees, so and minus the pool fees. So they made up pretty damn good here.
Oh yeah.
And this is according to what I've researched. Solo.ck pool, that's the mining pool there that solo that a lot of BitAxes go there.
That's the one you should be using if you're solo mining.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
This is almost a 300th time this has happened. 297 times a solo miner found something on that. 297 times. And apparently the winner this time around was using a 480 gigahash per second BitAxe machine. And keep in mind that the units we have are terahash, so they're 1,000 plus gigahash. Mm-hmm. So they were using an older model or severely underclocked it, one or the two. And if you're thinking about getting a BitAxe and you're like, I'm going to use this to mine in solo and I'm going to find a block, the odds are against you. It's fun to do this, but it's not going to make you any money. It's just more of a feel good thing. If you use, for example, 1.2 terahash BitAxe and you plug that in and you solo mine, you'll have a chance to win a block in 12,000 plus years on average. So good luck.
Brian Johnson might be able to win one, but you and me not injecting He's the guy who's like injecting the blood of his son every week or something to try and live longer.
Oh, I heard about that guy.
Yeah.
How old is he? Is he like in his 40s or
I think
50s?
I think he's 40 or 50, yeah.
Okay. So simply, I want to talk about this just for a sec, Joe, if you don't mind. So he is taking the blood from his.
That's not all he's
child.
doing. He's basically, this guy is a case study in the saying that once a metric becomes a measurement for success, it's no longer an effective measurement for success. And so he's trying to unwind what I think is called his biological age. And his biological age has a number of different metrics that, you know, give you this number. And he's doing everything from tracking sleep to injecting his son's plasma to measuring how many boners he gets overnight. Like you name it, he's got it written down somewhere. And so now he's just focused on longevity, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. I think I'm going to continue to enjoy a couple of pints on the weekend and not worry too much about the long term, because I can't imagine this is going to be worth it in the end. Just, you know, a science experiment more than anything by a guy who has, you know, an obsessive focus on extending his life.
If you think about what he's doing, and if it does work, which I'm skeptical, it probably would be copied by a number of different people right now. Take up somebody like LeBron James, for instance. He's now at the twilight of his career. I'm not a basketball fan, so I have no idea, but he's still performing at a high level, I would assume,
he's
right?
All NBA. That guy's more full of steroids than Prime Schwarzenegger, though.
Okay. But he's still, what is he, like 37, 38?
He's 41.
41, okay.
And he's been in the league since he was 18.
And he's still like at a high level in terms of playing, right?
There's a case that he's the MVP this year. I mean, he just got hurt a couple of weeks ago, but you'd be able to make a case for it.
If anybody would consider doing it, consider how much money he makes for himself, the team, the league, TV sponsor, all this shit. He would be somebody who would, and if he's going to eventually bow down to Father Time and do it within the next 2-3 years, then you understand
LeBron,
that.
you think 2-3 years?
I don't know. How many guys?
I think Balco Industries in Miami might have something to say about that, but I guess we'll find out. That's a deep cut.
I don't know.
People who don't know who Balco is, look it up.
Do players tend to play into their mid-40s at a
no
high level?
Oh my god!
So there you go. So yeah, there's not too many Gordie Howes out there, and he did it at a time when the league was, you know, the people got in shape during preseason rather than staying chip year round. So I'm not trying to discredit what Gordie Howe did. He did a wonderful job in his 50s. Either way. So talk about the bid axe. That guy did it. Good for him. And I want to talk about people that are tired of taking a shit on a cold toilet seat, because there's somebody out there that made the shit axe.
Are you gonna pull the story up? I don't think I have it bookmarked, but I'll see if I can find it while you talk.
So what is the shit axe? Well, it's a copper block that's it's attached to the bid axe, and it's a way of like a heat exchange, and it runs water through it. So this water goes through it and it heats up the water from the bid axe. And what he did with the water, he diverted it to run under the toilet seat. He ran a router under the toilet under the toilet seat, made it like so you could put it in there, and there you go. So he was able to heat up his toilet seat using just a bid axe. And if you overclock the bid axe, you can make the seat even warmer because, well, you're creating even more heat. So I think this redefines the term building a block. I have to give him credit for doing this. So there's he has a little video too, by the way. And if he could do this, and if you could time the shit with building a block, like with having one built, like, I think that would be next level stuff. So it's people who are going to do this, try to time your shit with as it comes into the water when the block is being built.
Yeah.
So I thought this was kind of funny, but it kind of makes sense in a way, because you're repurposing heat that would typically go wasted, and you're using it, you're repurposing it into making an improvement. So I like this. It's good stuff. I'm going to give it 4 to 5 flushes.
Better name, the shit axe or the Shitoshi toilet?
See, the toilet would be the actual unit. So it's a combination. You have to have the shit axe and the Shitoshi
Okay.
toilet. So
interesting. Yeah, we got to think about this. This is going to take some more time. This is a CBP special investigation episode coming up. How do we pick a name for this thing, this device? I love that. You know what's funny? I was talking to Tom last week. Everybody, Your Life, Your Terms, by the way, since we released those CBP units, God bless you if you got one, because we're still getting messages for people asking if they can buy one or not. Everybody at Your Life, Your Terms is running a bid axe. Everybody. All the staff, old, young, man, woman, child, doesn't matter. They all have BitAxes running in their office now. And they're buying more. They got one guy there, this Indian guy, Keith, I think his name is, trying to import the parts to build his own, like with a little more firepower. Crazy. The stuff that these guys are, it's amazing. Like, and so what I was going to say is, my wife looks at my BitAxe and just doesn't think anything of it. It's kind of neat looking, whatever. It's just a thing in the house. In Bitcoin, oftentimes you are inviting weird looks from your wife based on the, sort of goods and stuff that show up at your house. Like behind me here, you got, the Mate-X, you got the block clock, you got some other stuff here. Like Mark's logo even is not directly Bitcoin related, but the bomb thrower logo. You got all kinds of weird shit, right? And everyone is always asking about the weird shit. Do you think anything in your house would compare to the look that your wife would have given you if you were in the washroom with a router attaching a miner to the fucking toilet seat? Like how much side eye can one woman give you? This would be an all-time high for female side eye in my house. I am 100% sure that it'd be so hard to top.
Well, you wouldn't do this on the family washroom. You do it on the man's washroom, the one that you have for yourself, right? So that way, nobody's
always sitting down. The one where you're always sitting down,
and you can control the heat to your ass. You can set it to how you want it, and nobody's gonna say a thing. So there you
go.
I'm
gonna be downstairs overclocking for a bit. Don't come knocking.
Not the family one. It's next to the man cave. See this phishing attempt that's going on, and yeah.
I got one. I got one of those emails with the seed words.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't get it.
I'll see if I can find it. Maybe I still have it.
So for people who are unaware, there's a phishing attempt claiming to be Coinbase, and they're saying that they are customer service, and they're providing people with a new set of seed words to use. And obviously these are already generated by somebody else, and they're hoping that somebody deposited its money into that. So whoever provided the phishing email is going to take advantage. And well, don't look at this shit. If you get it, it's not anything to do with Coinbase. And there's the email.
Don't go in there. That's my personal wallet. I'm trusting everyone to leave that alone. That's where my funds are now.
Hang on, I'm gonna punch this in my wallet here. So yeah, Coinbase would never, like, we talk about Coinbase sometime good, sometime bad, but they would never do something like this. It obviously doesn't make sense. It's a phishing attempt. If you ever get anything like this, really look at it. Hover your mouse over it to see where the link is going to and shit, or it's coming from. All that shit, you'll find that it's just trying to rip you off. This is just another way to make money and to make you more poor in the end. So it's bullshit. It's too bad. It's not a Coinbase thing. It's more just a phishing thing than anything else.
Yeah, I have no comment on that. That's a low effort attempt too, I would say. That's my personal opinion.
They probably captured a few people. If you only get a few hundred here, a few hundred there, and it's a day's pay.
You gotta
right?
wonder if did every person who got that email get a unique 12? I wonder. That's another
different.
Thought,
I've
right?
seen different emails. So unique per person, or maybe they're batching them, but I've seen different emails with different words. I should punch it in to see if anybody sent it in, by the way.
Yeah,
we can check it out. That's anyways. So Coinbase too is also going back to India. That's a really low-hanging fruit story.
Interesting.
So, well, India apparently is a big country for
call
Bitcoin / crypto. So whatever. Okay. You must be happy to hear this because you have still exposure to Coinbase.
I mean, I don't care. At this point, whatever. Without getting into too many details about my portfolio, like I don't look at it much anymore. It just runs. Everything is automated. I don't really change the position sizing or anything. So actually, I got some shit from our buddies SB and Wayfaring the other day because I told them on dips now I don't buy any equities. I just buy Bitcoin. I started doing that a few months back. So
that's
going
to
to continue.
Strategy.
Yeah, it's going to continue. The DCA never stops on the equity side. Hold your tomatoes, but on dips, all the extra cash goes into Bitcoin. It doesn't go into anything in the market.
So that's a sound strategy because, well, I talk about all the time, but in the province of Quebec, somebody was posting in our Discord. You should check out our Discord, by the way, because
I'll put the link in the chat. I'll put the link in the chat.
Thank you. And you have to, in Quebec, disclose what's this guy saying? Every crypto transaction, regardless if you have a gain or a loss. And apparently, if you fail to do so, you're going to get fined $25 a day, up to $2,500. So, man, oh man, Quebec is getting serious about this stuff. They want you to disclose all your buys and sells for everything, which is why?
Yeah.
Why do they care?
I don't like that
Like,
very much.
if
at
I
all.
buy gold, are they going to be asking me for my gold purchases? Maybe if I buy and sell gold, obviously, because that
Well,
makes
if you
sense.
buy and sell gold, like if you buy gold from a pawn shop, you have to give ID. I think above a certain level. Certainly at the bank, if you buy any gold, you have to give ID, or they have your ID, so they don't need to ask. It's already available to them. It's
What does
the
the
other
pawn
stuff they have
shop
to
do
ask.
or the bank do when they take your identification? It's just to confirm
The
your.
pawn shop keeps your ID because you may be a seedy individual. That is
So it's
generally
not
that's
being
the
sent
client base.
anywhere. It's
No, no,
more
no.
for internal to make sure that they're covering their
Yeah, and if the
asses.
police come by, yeah, you got some names for them. Yep.
Yeah. So with respect to this, again, going back to gold, if I buy gold, do I have to disclose it to the Quebec government? I don't think so. It's just
But
they're,
where are you buying the gold?
where was it? Costco? I sent a link to Mark about this. They were selling it. I don't know if the deal's still on, but it was slightly below market value.
Wow.
And because I thought he was still buying, I don't know if he is or not. I don't want to disclose anything.
I do want to buy another like gold chain or something. I bought this one a couple of years ago when gold was like 2000 and thought that I was making a good move. I didn't expect it to jump, 34% or whatever in a year and a bit. I do want to get some more gold though, to be honest with you. I'm Italian. I like gold. And I think it's a fun, it's kind of a fun gift, right? Like I've been to weddings where we bought silver wafers for the bride and groom. I always thought that was kind of cool. Gold also, whether you're a Bitcoiner or not, I think you can appreciate gold from the standpoint of a store of value asset. It's still pretty neat. I'm not a gold hater. I'll say that much.
You're not handing out open dimes and
I
Sats
do
cards.
give out open dimes.
That's the way to do it here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Come
sent
on,
Mark
here.
Carney a CBP T-shirt and an open dime after he appeared on the show. I should message him and see if he figured it out. I think it was like $50 on there. My own Bitcoin I sent over to him. Yeah.
Did you mix it before? Please say you didn't. Please say you
No,
didn't.
I didn't. No, I didn't.
Start mixing now, Joey. Start mixing. Don't make a link to anything because now you can find out maybe, depending on.
I mean, I do coin control, so don't worry about that. But
Good job.
Yeah, I didn't mix it.
And Joey, I think that's it because I want to talk a lot.
40 minutes. Okay.
No, because last week we had to cut it early. I think I want to go. I want to talk. We have a lot to talk about.
We do. Yeah. Okay. So let's do it. If you're on audio, all the usual disclaimers. If you're on video, all the usual disclaimers. Talk to you soon.
Don't be a cock.
4211 is going to be a record. Where do you want to start here?
Okay, let's quickly do the Somalia story because apparently that's a USAID thing, and I want to debunk that.
Sure.
Or somebody debunked it.
This is the percentage of GDP, that thing?
And that's bullshit. That's totally bullshit because apparently
I think the number, okay, can I just say that the story is that USAID made up 40% of Somalian GDP.
Yes.
I don't think that's true. I think USAID if you give it the most generous interpretation, I think you could say USAID is contributing to 40% of the basket somehow or some way. But you're right. I don't think the story as being phrased is true. It can't be.
Somalia's like, okay, first it's has been considered a failed state. It is
a failed state. It's been a failed state for 50 years.
Not anyways, yeah.
I'm thinking about when I was in university, we used to talk about a few different failed states, right? Like there's always the Fiji, Mauritius example. Somalia was another one we talked about. There was a few others over the course of the 4 years I spent doing poli-sci. And I think
Zimbabwe maybe came to mind.
Sure, that's probably up there. But like how many, I think that's safe to say a failed state. Maybe the length of time.
Okay,
but yeah.
No, they're like number one in piracy, right? Like these are the guys.
Yeah.
If I think of pirates, it's either
I'm the captain now, right?
Right. The pirates of the Meridian. These guys, they're kicking ass over there. It's 40% of their foreign aid comes from USAID.
Okay.
So it's the foreign aid. That's a heck of a lot, by the way. So like the United States, just like one section of the government is providing 40%, but it's not the GDP. It's that. So people were saying it's the GDP. I don't think it's extremely hard to figure out what the GDP is over there, given how much USDT is probably being used and cash and so forth.
I'll just piggyback off Boomer's comment. We have to see if they include gold and diamond encrusted machine guns in the GDP number. If they do, then that's a G7 nation probably.
And Another thing I just want to bring up quickly: a lot of people are getting swatted. I'm not sure if you saw this. I don't know what's the genesis from all this, because I'm kind of confused. I'm trying to find a commonality between everybody, but apparently a lot of people are getting swatted on.
Swatting is despicable behavior. Should be you should be punished. Like, I'm talking 10, 15 years in jail, because the way that police forces seem to have a difficult time navigating some of these high intensity situations, and especially in America where a lot of households are armed, the potential for bloodshed incorrectly happening at one of these instances is very high, and no one should be subjected to that. The people being swatted or the police is traumatic for all parties, especially after you find out that it was the wrong house or you were fooled or whatever. It should be punishable by like 15 years in jail. I think that's like that should be the minimum. You're putting so many lives at risk. You're risking the legitimacy of the department. You're risking all sorts of stuff. And I think it's completely unforgivable.
How about a Salvadorian jail? 15 years in a Salvadorian
jail.
Sure.
Yeah, let's do it.
That's a huge deterrent. Not to say that it's pump fed over there
for the rest of your life. Yeah. Have fun with that.
Christ. So Canada officially has a new prime minister. Did we have one last week? We
didn't yet. He was sworn in on Thursday, right? Thursday or Friday. So.
Oh yeah, so there we go. So This is the first show we have post Trudeau. Trudeau is no longer our prime minister. It's now Mark J. Carney. And yeah, I mean, we could talk about him for a while. I mean, any first thoughts before we really go into this? Because
illegitimate prime minister, I would say, would be my first thought.
Why is that? Because the fact that he has not gone through a general election to be elected prime minister?
It's not just that; it's that he's globetrotting and not calling an election first. You don't have to have the election before you go to Europe, but you sure should have called it for sure. I think that's fair to say. Refuses to disclose to the media what assets are being held in this blind trust, even getting testy today with Rosie Barton. I'm going to pull this up because I think it's worth listening to. It's a very, very short clip. Rosie Barton, we've been critical of Rosie Barton, maybe me more than you, Len, over the last few years, because she really is the mascot for the slanted CBC. She was visibly upset when Ford was dominating the provincial election here in Ontario a few weeks ago. She's been visibly upset, talking about the rise of conservative ideologies in Canada over the last little while. And this is really an incredible clip that is just, it's hard to believe that the sitting prime minister has so little in terms of competency in front of a microphone and has done so little in terms of preparation for what should have been an obvious question. It really tells you all you need to know about Mr. Carney, in my opinion. And I think people should watch this clip and they should share it widely and they should be critical of the response. Let's listen in here.
I'm complying with the rules in advance. Point final.
Are you saying you are not open to any conflict of interest?
Yes.
Someone spent most of his life in the private sector. There's no possible conflict of interest in your assets. It's very difficult to believe.
Look inside yourself, Rosemary. I mean, you start from a prior of conflict and ill will. I have served in the private sector. I have stood up for Canada. I have left my roles in the private sector at a time of crisis for our country. I'm complying with all the rules. Your line of questioning is trying to invent new rules. I'm complying with the rules that Parliament has laid out and the responsibilities of the Ethics Commissioner. And I will continue to comply with those rules.
So I'll put the link to the video in the chat. I realize it's hard to hear Rosie Barton because, as you can imagine, they're trying to pull the mic from her. He answers the question he answers the question in French first.
No. The question was first done by the Globe and Mail reporter, and you could hear her loud and clear. So that person had the mic, and then
that was a different question.
Right.
I didn't even pull up the Globe and Mail question, but the Globe and Mail question is even better. That you keep on talking about, because she doesn't ask directly about conflict of interest. The Globe reporter, what she asks is, your assets are in a blind trust now, which means you don't know what they are going forward, but you did know what they were going in. What were they? He refuses to answer. But thankfully, Len, we have guys like Sam Cooper doing work on what they are. And on Zero Hedge today, Sam Cooper was featured an article that details all the investments and ties between Brookfield Asset Management and guess which global superpower?
United States?
China.
Oh.
And it's not
they
just
moved to the
him.
U.S., by the way.
Yeah, they did move to the U.S., although they delayed their reporting recently so that they didn't have to disclose that during the election cycle. Look, you could say whatever you want about Carney as a politician, as a central banker, as a man. Obviously stories about his child coming out today. I think that's another signpost that you have to pay attention to if you're a Canadian. Is it fair to attack a child? No, but it is 100% fair to attack the parenting style. And I think that's for sure in the cards for him during any debate, whether it's brought up on stage or just talked about on the periphery. It is 100% fair. You can comment on any of these things. And you may be right or wrong to say, like I said earlier, that I think it's illegitimate what he's done in the first few days of his prime ministerial run, whatever you want to call it, globetrotting to Europe. Two unelected bureaucrats, one named Mark Carney, one named Ursula von der Leyen, meeting with each other and talking about how great things are going to be between the two countries. Neither are between the two powers, the European Union and Canada. Neither of you were elected by your populations. Both of you appointed through, I would say, less than democratic processes. That's my opinion. You can comment on all these things, but the thing that needs to be discussed, okay, and we said this last week on the show, I'm going to say it again now. What do Mark and Diana Carney have in their portfolio? How much of it is related to climate change extremism? How much of it is in China? And how much of it do they owe in terms of the ease of with which they acquired those assets? How many favors do they owe to the Chinese government? Minister Champagne, same thing. He's got a couple mortgages with a Chinese bank as well. That story came out a few years ago. I've not seen a resolution to that story, but the total is a couple of $1 million. Like these things, they add up over time. And again, for a guy who's talking about transparency and a guy who's talking about change and a guy who's talking about a way forward, all I see is more of the same. And he needs to discuss where the assets came from, what they are. He needs to talk about the Brookfield link to China. He needs to talk about why he moved Brookfield to the United States. He needs to answer for these things.
No, it's understandably why he moved to the United States. And I think this has been disclosed. Everybody's aware.
He needs to discuss it. He needs to discuss it. He's the one who needs to talk about it because he's the guy who's got pictures with Trudeau at the diner talking economic policy. He's the guy who supported that government when they were making decisions about how to navigate the pandemic, how to navigate all these different crises we've seen over the last 5 or 10 years.
Last economic update, I could be wrong, but was he involved? And I think he
Probably.
was. No, I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
So because the way I understand it to be is that he was involved with help drafting it and help, at least create that document. And then it was also around. It was just the perfect opportunity, right? Like he was involved with it, and he's going to be presenting and all this, but just he was there, right? Like he was part and parcel of it all, and the guy has made a lot of money. He's worked for a number of years as.
There's no reason he shouldn't. There's no reason he shouldn't be rich. There's no reason he shouldn't be rich.
Well,
Bank of Canada, two central bank appointments, Brookfield, Goldman, like rich is the table stakes here for him.
So Canada and Bank of England, how many years in total? Decent amount. He was making around 600,000, 700,000 pounds per year while working for the government, Bank of England governor, and that was 10 plus years ago. So but still, you got to add it all up. Does it make sense that he's worth this amount, whatever that number is, right? Like, I look at people when they may have a lot of money. It's like, where did it come from? How did they make it? I want to have more disclosure, as you say, more transparency. And I'm kind of questioning as to like how it is to get this.
Len, your mic cut out a little bit there, like a minute ago, and boomers in the chat asking if you were talking about the Clintons. As soon as you started talking, it just went a little fuzzy for like 5 seconds. We'll never know what was said. We'll never know what was said.
You got to be fucking kidding me. You're joking, right? You're
It's only
pulling
like
the leg, right?
it was only like 5 seconds. We caught the rest of it. It was about
Jesus.
whether Carney was involved in the financial
That's
statement.
fucking funny.
Yeah.
Anyways,
But
so
it is like, it's interesting. And I just want to point out one more thing. Okay.
Something's going
Like
on.
we're not talking small numbers here. The total investments that Brookfield has in China, they're enormous. It's, Shanghai commercial property, 750 million. Shanghai office tower complex is 2 billion. That was only 5 years ago. Loan from the Bank of China, 276 million. That was 4 months ago. Xintiandi stake, 22% stake in something called Shuiyan Land, almost $1 billion, 2013. Solar projects, joint venture, 100 million a few years back. And, there's been a tax avoidance issue too, through offshore structuring in 2021 to the tune of $6.5 billion. And so you got to ask yourself, like, again, okay, if I'm the Liberal Party of Canada, I have to pick a leader. Okay, so what are my options? I can go with Freeland, who arguably stood up to the big bad wolf, during the last throes of his government and decided she wasn't going to play ball anymore. By all accounts, we discussed on this show, received a standing ovation at the ministers' meeting that night. And, they didn't go with her. They could have gone with Karina Gold. She's pretty young, inexperienced. I don't think extremely competent. Certainly not anything new in terms of policy, but a fresh face, arguably a little bit removed from the Trudeau government. They could have gone with Bayless, businessman, doesn't seem to have a great deal of, foreign adversarial, potentially connections, was a liberal enough that he can make the case he's a party member, but not so much that he's involved with the falling government. Or they could have gone with Carney, a guy who has pictures with Ghislaine Maxwell, has, maybe or maybe not sent his kid overseas to a controversial, gender clinic in the UK. Maybe or maybe doesn't have a couple of billion worth of conflicting assets under his name that are affiliated with Chinese companies, affiliated with the Chinese government. I don't know. Like why pick that guy? And the answer is because you just can't help yourself. Like that's the kind of person you want. You want that guy. You want the guy who's going to keep carrying this torch. And the torch is environmental policy that's going to destroy the economy. The torch is unfettered immigration. I mean, he said as much. We can't afford to be anything but pro-immigration. I strongly disagree with that. And I think 80% of Canadians disagree with that at this point. Like, if that's the guy you want, fine. The problem I have now, Len, is that 338, the polling guys who got, the provincial thing right, and they've gotten stuff right in the past, I hate to say it, they got this at a dead heat pretty much, with maybe even a liberal advantage. Polymarket, same thing. It's getting closer every day on Polymarket.
He has history against him. I'm talking about Carney.
Yeah.
If you look at somebody that has come in and appointed as leader and then prime minister without a general election, historically, they don't do well in the next election. Paul Martin was supposed to have a record win, and he got a minority government. Mm-hmm. Kim Campbell was the one before that, and while they only won 2 seats.
Very unique case there, but yeah.
The one before that, John Turner, there was the Mulrooney sweep. He just absolutely destroyed. So that's the last 3. So to go back to one that has been successful, you have to go back to Pierre Elliott Trudeau. Back to 1968 was the last time you had a leader come in and get appointed as prime minister and then win the next election as like a majority.
Yeah,
Pierre Elliott Trudeau. That's 1968. That's a very long time.
Where do you put the likelihood? We'll take Paulie's question here. Do you think there's going to be a spring election?
Yeah, there has to be.
I hear. Did you listen to Poilievre this morning? I'll preface this with this comment that Poilievre is saying, like, we are less than 100 days or 120 days from an election now. He's convinced they're going to get a spring summer. I know, but they keep saying it, and I wonder if they're saying it to put pressure on, because Carney, on Twitter, in his public appearances, seems to be feeling no pressure to send Canadians to the ballot box.
Mark Carney, whatever the heck his name is, the guy from Kingston area.
Kingston, yeah.
He was photoed this past week. He's posted on Twitter that it was the most pre-writ lawn sign requests that he's received since he ran.
Yeah.
And so he's out there now canvassing pre-writ. This past weekend, I think on Saturday,
I had people at my door too. Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
they're out there, right? So something they have to be in this mood anyways, because
I'll say this too. Like the two conservative guys who came to my door asked if my wife and I were voting conservative. I said yes, and they asked we put a lawn sign up, and I said in this neighborhood absolutely not. And they go, it's funny, if everybody who said absolutely not in this neighborhood put one up, the neighborhood would feel a lot different. And I thought that was an interesting comment. He doesn't have to say that. Maybe he's not giving me the full truth there, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot more closeted conservative voters because of this Trump stuff, right? It seems to be the topic du jour for a lot of people.
And another thing that Carney has against him, he's an Anglophone. The last time an Anglophone did well in Quebec, because it's very hard to form government, especially majority government, without winning Quebec. Harper did it in 2011. But it's very, very difficult. You have to buck the trend. It just doesn't happen, because if you go back, who are the Anglophones that ran? Harper didn't do very well in Quebec. Joe Clark didn't do very well in Quebec. Paul Martin didn't do all that well in Quebec, but also that was a sponsorship scandal. So we're talking now 40 plus years of history that you have to go back. And so being an Anglophone, it's a tough way to win, especially as a liberal leader. It's tough to win as an Anglophone in Quebec.
Yeah.
And so he's going to have to deal with that as well. And 338 was talking about, when you mentioned it, and 338 is showing that the Liberals are going to actually do pretty decent in Atlantic Canada. I was saying last week they were going to do not too well. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe they will get more seats than I thought. Also, they're going to get some seats between Manitoba and Alberta. I thought they were going to get shut out, but 338 is saying the opposite. They'll get a handful, but a handful is better than nothing. I was saying
federal
so
election.
I don't know.
So we'll just talk about a couple here. Federal voting intentions from Angus Reid. Angus Reid skews left, and the sample, is, you could argue this is oversampling Liberals, but it's not oversampling by much. Liberal Party of Canada 42% to 37% for the Conservatives. That's Angus Reid, like I mentioned. We can see one here, the 338 update from March 16th, that's today or yesterday. Liberal Party of Canada, 150 seats to the Conservatives, 149.
CP Man saying he's in Montreal and he'd vote for Bloc before.
Yeah,
it's funny because Montreal typically is very red.
Even from Abacus here, Abacus is conservative or leans conservative, like oversamples conservative. 38-34, that's not as wide a margin as the Liberals had in the Liberal oversampling. You can go down the list here. This is the guy's name is Philippe Fournier. I want him to come on the show, though I'm not sure that he will, given our or at least my overt biases. Yeah, 338 Canada is the Twitter account. Lots of good data. And then the one we talked about, a little bit offline, you, me, and Mark, the poly market one is crazy that it's this close. Like, I don't know what it is right now. Let's see.
Did you talk to any normies about Carney?
They all like Carney. Everyone I know likes Carney.
And is it because he Bank of Canada connection?
No, because they think he's better to handle Trump. It's truly like retard level commentary in the normie circles. I hate to say it. I love all my normie friends, but they just don't get it. Mark Carney right now, next prime minister of Canada after the election. Poilievre 54, Carney 47. That's including, by the way, non-zeros for Freeland and Singh. So you got to figure Freeland and Singh's money is going into Carney's pot. Does that add another 2 points? Does that make it 49-51 or something? That's insane. That is insane that's possible. Yeah. And that's not a market. Like Mark pointed this out before the show. Like, that's not a market that you care to manipulate, because if Mark Carney wins, your stock portfolio doesn't go up. If Poilievre wins, your stock portfolio doesn't go up. Nothing changes. We're so small. We're insignificant, right? We're a speck. But that market is telling you something there. That's people who want to make money on the result, not on tertiary or S&P futures. That's probably a pretty honest betting market. So I don't know, man. It's interesting.
Normies are looking at Poilievre and saying that he is probably not going to be the best guy to stand up against Trump. And I don't think Poilievre has done himself any favors in the past 2 months and change.
2 years. Since he hasn't done himself any favors in 2 years. He hasn't done anything.
Well, he was doing the right thing for quite a while. Let's be perfectly honest. He was in the lead, and you may be saying a lot about the opponent more
That's
than anything else,
always
but
my stance. Yeah.
it worked. And with respect to and I've said this before many moons ago about Polyev, is what could he bring to the table that's unique? He is working for his career, I think for his whole career, in elected politics. He's been a
5
politician.
terms he's on right now.
And he's what, 42 or something like that? 40.
Yeah, he's like
he's
my
not
age. He's in between you and me, I'm pretty sure.
okay. So like that's a long time. That's most of his adult life. He's been so what is he going to bring to the table that's different? And I've said this before. He grew up in this environment. I mean, as an adult, this is what he knows. This is what he breathes. This is what he lives. It's not like he's going to come up with any new ideas. It's going to be rehashing the same old, same old. Not that that's bad, but it's still going to be the same old, same old. So it's not to say like, you want to bring somebody new in, but you want to have some experience too in a different realm. And you can bring that in and try to meld that into the world of politics and make things better overall. I think that's going to be working against him in the fact that he's been there. He's a career politician. And I can't see that as being like something that's helping them out. Maybe it's just me. I don't know.
I think you're
but
right.
He's got to work it.
His campaign has just been so piss poor since Carney took over.
We invited him to this show.
We were close to getting him, and then he won the leadership.
We were not.
I think we're closer than you do.
No,
and then he won the leadership.
We invited. I met I went to Tahini's.
Mm-hmm.
I took the day off.
Yeah,
went out to fucking Tahini's when he was there, and I met with Polyev and his chief of staff. I said, I'd love to have you on a show. Okay, blah blah blah. Got his information. Reached out to chief of staff. Boom. Said no. Without saying
he didn't say no. He said now things have changed. I think.
Well, like I said, he said no without saying no.
Which by the way is like a worse response. And to the credit of Carney, like Carney comes out right away, and I don't know anything about the inner workings of that Trump-esque executive order that he signed. He just jots his name down, high fives a few people, and people clap, right? Polyev today did almost a 1 hour long press conference, prepared remarks, English and French, took questions in front of a podium or behind a podium that had a sign on the front that said "Axe the tax." The tax is no longer the issue, man. The tax is secondary now. The whole thing is, are you better to deal with Trump? And by the way, that's not what thinking people don't care about that, in my opinion. Thinking people should care about expanding the economy, cutting taxes, making this a more business friendly place. Carney, on the other hand, is talking about making this more cumbersome for new businesses, whether it's through taxes or through regulation or through dumb climate shit. Like, it's going to make it less inviting, and it's going to damage the Canadian economy further at a time when his former deputy, Bank of Canada chair, Tiff Macklem, now obviously the chair, has said as much, that you need to be productive, otherwise we're in big trouble. Doesn't seem like the message is landing, and instead, we're overseas talking with the Europeans. A currency zone that is quite literally tying the noose around their neck and trying to kick the chair out from underneath themselves every day. And that's who we're going to partner with, I guess. I don't know. It's fake that anyone, like the fact that anyone believes this is so sad for the country, but it's where we are.
Did you see that link that was being floated around, and it was the GDP per capita over the past 10 years?
Yes.
And if you look, yeah, well, interestingly enough, because one of the countries I saw in there, I don't want to say who, I was shocked that they were on there, but Canada's sitting around 0-ish%. But the other countries that were on there, Joey, a lot of them that were double digits are in the EU.
Yeah.
So you can say what you want about them, and I know they have been doing a lot of favors, but in the numbers, GDP per capita, which is a metric we talked about as being like a metric of how well the country is doing per individual, some of those European countries are doing decent, still below United States. Yeah. United States is still the gold standard, but still, it's, I'm trying to say it's decent. So I'm not trying to say anything. It's I don't think it's as bad as you make it out to be, because just looking at that, I'm looking at okay. All right.
Yeah, I think it's pretty bad, to be honest with you. GDP per capita economic growth for 10 years. So over 10 years, if you get 4% GDP per capita growth, like, that's fucking terrible. If you get
the United States was just 20%, and 20%, that's also
that includes the COVID years. Like, that's pretty good, And then, we should note that doesn't include the destruction that took place in the currency market for us. Like we're getting killed in currency, we're getting killed in trade, we're getting killed in productivity. And that also doesn't take into account that probably what you're going to see in the next few years is that number go down even more as productive people leave. If you keep tagging the country and the productive population with more nonsense, eventually they will leave.
Well,
right?
just ask, I mean, in the audience here listening and watching, or actually people watching, I'd love to know how many people are actively trying to make arrangements to leave.
Yeah.
Be it 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years.
Tons.
But like, are you going through the motions?
Since 2014, I'll pull a stat here from a guy named Invested Capital. Since 2014, in business investment in Canada collapsed by 20%. 20%. That's a lot. You know, and then I just want to add one more thing on the carbon tax. Like, Premier
well, no,
Kenney,
we'll talk about that. Let's
Sure.
not gloss
Okay,
over
yeah,
it.
okay.
No, but
Sure.
go ahead. We have to talk about this.
Yeah, the carbon tax thing is nuts. Like he acts the tax, and then the Liberal Party is dancing, what they think is dancing on the grave of the Conservative Party. Can you imagine if your whole campaign was axe the tax, and then the Liberals just axed it for you?
It's a brilliant move.
It is if you're retarded, and if you're not retarded, you look at it and say, if you're not retarded, you look at it and say, I can't believe these people think that we forget that they did this. The thing that's going to hurt the most is on April 1st, the price of gas is going to drop by like 17 cents or 18 cents. So you will have paid.
Brilliant.
You will have paid. Like this is like, again, the R-slurred versus the thinking man. Okay. The thinking man looks at this and goes, I've been paying 17 more cents a liter for gas because these guys told me if I didn't pay that, the world would burn. You know, there was a guy literally like crashing out, as the kids say, in Parliament, like 6 months ago, talking about if you go on a summer vacation, the world's going to set on fire. Like, idiot. And like now this guy is canceling it. Jason Kenney made a great point. Did you know that in 2020 or 2019, he sued the federal government to try and get rid of the carbon tax, and the Supreme Court sided with the feds, 6 out of 9 judges, that the carbon tax was necessary to, quote, prevent irreparable harm and, quote, critical to our response to an existential threat to human life in Canada and around the world. And now
this
they
is a
cancel
narrative.
it. Now they cancel it.
Yes.
Like it's bonkers. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, is that the same people who don't have time to sit around the table and talk about why their money isn't working and why inflation is killing them and why their house is worth so much, but they still have no money in the bank, those same people are not going to have the time to talk about how obviously scammy this behavior is from the Liberal Party and from Carney. And instead, they're going to go, well, it sure is nice that I don't have to pay 17 more cents. Like, is it putting money in your pocket, or is it not putting money in your pocket?
Is it
helping Canadians, or is it not helping Canadians? Is the world going to burn, or is it not going to burn?
It depends what you read and who you listen to and when.
For fuck's sake.
So last year, I could go back. July of last year, this is from Canada.ca website, the finance department. I got some information here. They said in provinces where federal fuel charges apply, a family of 4 will receive up to $1,800 under the base Canada carbon rebate.
Sorry, this is from the Ministry of Finance, yeah?
Department of Finance on Canada.ca. As of July of last year, a family of 4 will get $1,800. So now that $1,800, apparently there's one more check coming around, and after that check, they're no longer going to get that. So either we're not going to get this money because we weren't paying into it, or like somehow like we're either going to get more for not paying, or we're just, I don't know what the fuck this is.
It's going to be hidden, right? Like this is the other, sorry, keep going.
No more. October, I'm even going more recent, October of 2024. The federal government announced it will return $2.5 billion in carbon tax rebates to small businesses by December 2024. So small businesses were, if we believe this to be revenue neutral in a way that, or at least positively impacting people, small businesses are going to get hit to the tune of $2.5 billion. That's what they told us October of last year. Source Canada.com. This is the environment climate change website. Check that out. Yeah. Then we have now, like you mentioned, the consumer tax rebate or price is going to be gone. And they asked directly why. Why, Mr. Carney? Why is this being canceled? He said, the government is, quote, focused on action, end quote. Focused on act. What action is going to be now enacted that hasn't been, if climate is a huge thing and we have to pay for using carbon, what to this date, like, I'm not trying to defend it, I'm trying to say that's what's being done. Either it was wrong, we have to cancel it, or it's right, we have to continue it. But by doing the action of cutting it, it's saying it's wrong. Furthermore, you could even go, Canada apparently has reduced its carbon emissions in 17 years from 2005 to 2022. 54 megatons were reduced from by Canada in that 17-year period of time. And some of it is being attributed to the carbon tax. Now, if the carbon tax is gone, obviously then there's going to be more carbon. It's so carbon bad. I don't know. You tell me this. And that information I got, it was modified as of 2025 January, just this year, 2 months ago. Not ancient history. This is so. There's a price that they still want to put for big industries to, at least if they're going to do anything with carbon. So I don't know. This whole thing politically, I think it's a brilliant move to chop Pierre Poilievre at the knees, because this whole axe to tax thing, he could still say it, but the reality is, at least for the consumers, it's going to be gone. We'll still pay in the end somehow if they're going to be taxing big industries. Like nobody's going to be eating this.
So laughable that anyone thinks you're not going to pay for this in the long term. It's so laughable. I just I'll say the same thing I said on Tom's show, that I'm so sick of being told that I have to eat my shorts basically to continue to be Canadian. You know, I have to be tougher and take a wartime footing. And I just think when I hear things like you have to pay the carbon tax or you have to buy Canadian, I might have said this last week, I'm going to say it again anyway. When you hear stuff like this, and I tweeted it as well, when you tell me I have to buy Canadian, what are you really saying? When you tell me I have to support Canada, what are you really saying? That I have to buy from companies who 5 years ago wouldn't let me or my friends and family in unless we got these vaccines, which didn't work the way they were advertised, even though we were lied to about it. That's a fact. You can disagree with it if you want. It makes you stupid to think that. Is that the company I got to buy from? Is it the grocer who, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, last year, I'm being told now I have to buy from these Canadian stores. You told me a year ago they were price gouging me, that they were fucking me and lying about it and causing inflation, that it was them and not you. Is that the grocer I'm supposed to buy from? Am I supposed to go there and buy products that are manufactured in Canada, not by old stock Canadians, but by cheap Indian labor that came here on TFW nonsense over the last 2 years that won't hire kids from my area or your area or anyone's area? That's the company I got to buy from. That's the quote unquote Canadian product I got to buy. And it's all to support a country whose identity I was told is colonial, racist, xenophobic, not worth protecting. We're not a state. We're post-national. We don't have an identity. If you think that, you're not the kind of Canadian we want. In fact, new Canadians are more Canadian than me because they chose to be here and I just got here by the luck of the draw. Is that the country I'm supposed to be protecting? Or maybe it's the country that now can't afford to give me proper health care, makes me wait in line for weeks at a time, has, what does Mike Campbell say, 20,000, 30,000 people dying on waiting lists every year, even after paying into the healthcare system their whole life. That's the country you want me to support and defend? Get fucked. I'm not doing it. And they have to start figuring out that this nationalistic stripe is flimsy. And by they, I'm talking about average Canadians. Boomers especially need to get their head out of their ass and start realizing that they're handing us down a country that's irreparable if they continue voting for this nonsense and believing the shit they see on TV. And that's unforgivable. This is the last generation that's going to be able to fix, even in the slightest, any of these problems. And if we don't do it now with this election, if we give Carney and these guys 4 years or more, you can kiss this country goodbye. Goodbye. It ain't never coming back. You're going to be a Century Initiative freak show so the Eurasia Group and Brookfield and everyone else can come here, rape, pillage, steal, and rent to you, as opposed to you owning anything and being able to build a life. Good luck if they win this national election. Good fucking luck.
What is the first thing Mark Carney did? I mean, one of the first major thing he did when he became prime minister, aside from the carbon tax thing.
I don't know.
He hopped on a plane and went to Europe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
he went to a St. Patrick's Day parade. Very important stuff.
Well, listen, I'm going to not even acknowledge the St. Patrick's Day thing. The Europe thing I want to acknowledge. If climate change is a threat to humanity, if it truly is, you have to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. You have to walk. If somebody out there says climate change is horrendous and they change their life in a way which reduces the amount of carbon they emit, and they change their life and they are doing things differently. I respect that individual. I may not totally agree with what they're saying, but at least they are doing something for what they believe in. Now, when somebody hops on a plane, fuck, how much carbon does this guy put into the atmosphere? It's not like there's a bunch of people going there on vacation. It's him, few of his staff members, security and shit like that. That's it.
Yep.
That's it. Like, that's one of the first things you've done. Like, if carbon really was a fucking problem, you wouldn't do this thing.
It's just not true. It's just not true.
You would lead by example. You would say, you know what? Enough is enough. I'll do this by fucking Zoom. I know that's not industry standard, but we're going to make this industry standard now. We're going to make a stand now. We're not going to do this fucking bullshit, and we're going to lead by example until somebody does that.
Amen.
I can't, like, why am I the culprit? All I do is I wake up, hop in car, go to work, come back home. Why am I the fuck? This is the environment which you set up. Public transit isn't viable for me. So I have to drive my car. I don't take vacations. I haven't been on a fucking plane in 10 years. Why am I the fucking problem?
Yep.
I'm not. I'm fucking part of the solution. I'm paying into this to make it easier for people, for everybody to fucking live. I'm not fucking doing this bullshit, but somebody that comes in, not even fucking voted by the majority of people. And the first thing you hop on a plane, it's fucking bullshit.
Yep.
You got to call fucking this out. And I'm going to do it right now. Fucking stop it, man. You got to fucking do better.
I honestly believe that anyone with a platform and a voice should be doing everything they can to make sure this party does not win a national election. Everyone should be doing this. I rarely ever say that. I rarely ever get this political and this angry, but the stakes, like, they are so high, man. They are so high. You have to stop these policies from destroying the country further. You have no choice but to be a voice in your community, in your friend group, with your family.
No. I'm
totally
thinking you got to do a step further, Joey.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the one I'm living this one. You got to prep. You got to
prepare too. You have to prepare like they're gonna win. I think so too. Yeah.
And I'm fine with. And I kind of in a way I want them to win, but I'm like, prep for the great exodus. Whenever that's supposed to be for you, just prep for that. That's what you got to. That's the salvation for you. You have your Bitcoin and you have whatever else you have, and then just fucking do it. Like, whatever happens behind you, let it burn, man. It's not your fucking problem.
Agreed.
I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna fucking enjoy it. You guys should do the same. Take action, figure it out, and do it.
Yeah, totally.
Well, we'll talk about these aluminum tariffs and steel tariffs, 50%.
For what? What are we going to talk about? Like you know,
the funny thing is Canada then
we just get dunked on. All we do is get dunked on by American politicians, American media, American, like, everything. They just dunk and dunk and dunk and dunk.
Well, Canada's doing retaliatory tariffs. Fuck that. Almost $30 billion in retaliatory tariffs.
$30 billion. Ooh, is that a lot?
I don't know if this is true or not, but I think it was LeBlanc, he was saying on one of the national TV spots, he was saying that United States, they need our aluminum. And forgive me if I'm wrong, I'm just quoting what he's saying, because they don't have the capacity over there to meet the demand. So they have to import aluminum, and Canada is who they import it from primarily. So what this is going to do in the end, they're still going to have to get aluminum from somewhere. And if they're going to get it from Canada still, it's just going to be more costly for them. So I keep
on hearing that every Canadian politician keeps on saying the U.S. can't exist without X commodity from Canada. Like, that's a lie. It's a lie. It may be difficult for them, but it is a lie. And just to point one other thing out about the point you made earlier, this climate change stuff, and Mark hopping on planes fresh off the Liberal leadership stage. Len, if we can't sell our aluminum to the States and we have to sell it to Europe, how are we going to get it there? Any idea? Is it going to be in a battery-operated electric vehicle? Any idea how we're going to get it there?
It's time to invent these Star Trek transporters.
Just the most heavily polluting vehicles the planet knows, basically anything non-military, is those ships, those cargo ships. Like, you're going to pollute even more going that way. It's unbelievable. Like, at every turn, there's contradictory information. And the fact of the matter is that We cannot compete with the United States and the tariffs. And by the way, for a guy who's tough talking America, has Trump even mentioned Carney's name in the last 4 days?
No, that's a great point. I
Hasn't
haven't heard
mentioned him. He's a fly. He's a fly.
He's gonna. There's
Like,
gonna be
he's not-
acknowledgement.
It's
Though.
gonna be, and you can. I can't wait to see, you know, 4'5" Carney against 6'4" Trump. You know, probably double his weight, and just the handshake in the Oval Office. Do you think Zelensky looks small in that chair? All these things, okay, were avoidable, all of them, if we had just embraced the natural resources that this country has to offer and used them to become economically viable with trading partners near and far. Instead, we refused. Pierre pointing out today at his press conference that instead of selling oil and gas or liquefied natural gas to the States now has a deal with Qatar. You know, did they have to get a deal with Qatar? I don't know. Probably not. We just refused to. We just refused to do the right things for so long, and now you have a guy who's even more determined to do the wrong things, and seems to have popular opinion behind him. There's so little hope for this country if they win. I cannot stress that enough.
Even
There's
lose,
so little hope.
Joey.
Even if they lose, you're right. No, you're right. But like
Yeah.
if they win, you will the decline will be so fast. Like so fast. You will feel it in your pocketbook, like, you know, 6 months after they win that election. You see it. Companies will no longer come here. You'll start to hear more whispers of, you know, forcing retirement and pension funds to invest in Canada. Carney, by the way, has already said that he thinks pension funds should have to be net zero. And as the Canadian government is not going to fuck around with the Canadian pension. They're going to tell these guys, CBP, IB, you have to be 50% or 60% or 80% or 100% in Canadian carbon neutral companies. That's no oil and gas. Like all these things, the runoff effects of these poor decisions is almost, it's hard to fathom the enormity of the world around these things. It's your pension, your healthcare, schooling, roads. It's everything relies on these things, on these guys getting this right. And they're just not going to get it right. Now, Pierre, I've said this before. I don't think he's a good politician. I've been critical of him for years now. He's TikTok. He's millennial. His party knows he's got limitations in front of a microphone, knows he's got limitations on a debate stage. That's why they had him add 20 pounds of muscle. That's why they got him on that workout regimen, because at least he can look imposing if he can't sound it, and he can't sound it. So, you know, at least if he wins, you probably won't see Alberta Oil and Gas immediately close up shop. You know, that's a plus. But to your point, Len, long term, like, what does Lynn Alden say, right? Nothing stops this train. I think that train is starting to pick up speed here. Even normies are realizing it.
Maybe his wife could get involved. All right. By the way, can we invest in Eurasia? Is that a publicly traded company?
It's not. It's like a consulting group.
That's too bad. I'd love to get into that because they seem to. Canada is also, it's kind of a different topic, but kind of the same thing. Canada is planning to issue the U.S. global bonds in not too distant future. And a lot of people on Twitter were saying, what the fuck is this all about? But this is not the first time they've done this. No. Like in the past 5 years,
but
6 years.
It's currency defense. It's currency defense. Like, that's not good to be defending your currency before. I mean, maybe it's before there's a crisis. Maybe there's a crisis that I don't know about or we can't see. But
they've been doing this for a few times in the past few years. And before that, maybe, I don't know how many. I just randomly pulled up 2 dates and found it in 2024. They did it last year, and they did in 2019 too. So whatever. I mean, I don't think this is a huge thing more than anything. Like, it's just par for the course, right?
It's another signpost. It's a signpost. Yeah.
Well, one more signpost we could talk about, and it won't be people driving EVs or at least Teslas in BC, because BC is now going to war with Elon, and they plan to remove the EV subsidies for the charging stations and whatnot on Tesla products. So David Eby, did I pronounce his name right? Or
I think it's Eby.
Okay, David Eby, I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name. He said he's going to be barring Tesla products from the province's electric rebate policy, and he's going to be doing this to preference Canadian goods. And so Tesla products, they're not going to be subjected to the British Columbia's clean BC or BC Hydro rebates, which could grant up to 50% of the cost for people that install a charging station at home. This is according to the BC Hydro website. So they're going to be forcing people, or at least incentivizing people, to seek for alternatives, in this case, Canadian good alternatives. Whatever.
Yeah, this is, what am I even going to say? I don't know. Like, I'm tapped out. Well, how much more can I say? I'm at the point now where, yeah, you got me thinking, like, it doesn't matter what I fucking say anymore. It doesn't matter how big the show gets, how many people we talk to. I just got to plan my escape. Like, at this point, what else is left?
Yeah. I've been saying this for a while. Everybody should be doing this, because when the time comes, you want to make sure that you have everything in order and you have to do as minimal work.
Hey, and by the way, any word from any of these clowns or Carney, clowns and Carney, unbelievable. Any word from any of these clowns on the Chinese 100% tariff on like rapeseed oil and stuff like that came down last week? Has anyone mentioned that? Does the CBC talk about that at all? Is there a new tax or tough talk coming for President Xi, or are we just like so cocked that we can't even bring it up? We can't even talk about it in the media. Like, where are we on that?
What about the dairy industry? There has been
get me
tariffs.
started. I talked about that on Tom's show last week. You'll hear me talk about that tomorrow when it comes out. 300% on after a certain threshold. Tom had a great story. Went to the States, tried to buy more than $20 worth of butter, ended up costing him $400. Had to go back and return the butter over the border. Unbelievable! It's unbelievable.
Why is this? Why is that acceptable?
Because we are full of shit, uncompetitive losers in this country. That's why. What other explanation is there? We're addicted to fucking losing. It's everywhere. It's your cell phone bill, the price of eggs, the price of energy, the politicians. It's everywhere. We drive every company worth a damn gets driven out. Everyone.
You should take a look. Because I watch international TV, and I don't want to say which one, but the cell phone plans and home internet.
Everyone has seen this.
Everyone, cheap they are.
If you want to get mad, look at the fucking telco plans in the States compared to here or Europe.
Well,
my wife and I went to Europe a few years ago.
Europe is.
It cost me like $8. Okay, to go there and get a SIM card with unlimited calls, texts, and data for 2 fucking weeks. $8 or €8, whatever. So $15, let's say.
No,
like,
I think 12 or 11.
Whatever. Like, it's
so
unbelievable that here, if you go to like the Canadian telco Reddits, people are like jerking each other off over getting 10 gigs for $60 a month. $60 fucking dollars for 10 gigs?
It's in some parts of Europe, it's so fucking cheap. So like you look at, that's just an example of how much you're paying. You're paying for gasoline over there. If you pay for petrol in Europe, it's expensive. But
your house is fucking dark and cold. But at least you can call your friends and complain about it. And until the government tells you it's hate speech and arrests you in the UK.
A lot of it is, the lifestyle is, you don't, a lot less driving, a lot more, friends and family that are nearby.
A lot less driving, a lot more starving.
No, that's not.
What'd you have for lunch today? Cigarette and a glass of wine.
What am I?
Same thing I had for dinner.
Joey, I think that's a good time to end it. 1:32. See, I told you we'd do a long second part of it.
Lots to talk about.
For whatever reason, this is a slow week in Bitcoin. When that guy Joshi Bitcoin was like the big story, that's an indication that it's been a slow. We've had a lot of weeks of just so much going on. We finally had a little bit of a breather, but only on the Bitcoin side. On the other side,
I'm not gonna read that comment, but for people on video,
I'd love to know what they speak.
I
would love to know.
I got some ideas. Anyway, listen, God bless. Come back on Wednesday for Len's interview with Mike DeGroot. You're gonna like that one. Lots going on in the P2P space here in Canada from a good Canadian. And until next time, friends, take care of yourselves.